Stephanie Murphy for Let's Talk Bitcoin. I'm talking with Marco from Conformal. Hi, Marco, what's your last name?
It's Marco Peereboom. It's a Dutch name, so I'm not even going to attempt to tell you people what it is.
I see. Welcome to Let's Talk Bitcoin.
Thank you.
And we're at the Texas Bitcoin Conference. Tell me about Conformal. I know a little bit about them, but maybe if our audience is not familiar, what do you do?
Well, Conformal started out as a security and privacy company. We did a online backup solution, zero-knowledge online backup solution. Being a bunch of crypto nerds, going into Bitcoin was relatively simple for us. So we started building a services business around Bitcoin. We did a full node replacement for Bitcoin D for the people who are familiar with that. And now we are basically building our servers on top of that code.
So a full node replacement, that means you rebuilt the Bitcoin client, reference client from scratch, essentially? Is that what you're saying?
Not essentially, yes. But that's exactly what we did. We rewrote the entire client in a different language called Go. And we are putting up the last shiny bits, and it's going to basically be ready for production. It's open source. Everybody can check it out and play with it.
Wow. So, okay, that's a huge thing. Why did you want to do that? I mean, what motivated you to create a new Bitcoin reference client in Go?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's actually a very interesting question, and it's a very expensive proposition because it's more than a man year. In fact, I'm not going to give you the exact numbers, but it took a lot of development time, a lot of folks. There's not a lot of documentation out there, but the reason was twofold. If we are going to stake a business on Bitcoin, we need the infrastructure of Bitcoin to be as sound as it can be. And being money, it's doubly important for it to be right. So the success of the internet is not because there was one TCP/IP implementation, it's because there were hundreds of them. So for us, it was very important to have multiple clients. So if there is a fork of sorts, then maybe not all the clients are affected, right? And then this is where the majority rule would kick in, and the faulty clients would then get forked, and the chain would effectively become unaffected of that. So, pure selfish reasons for the resilience in the Bitcoin network, and the fact that we can give it away and help some other folks along the way, and strengthen the Bitcoin community. That's just gravy.
Wow. So, okay, that's really cool, and I see the value in it. Like you compared it to the internet, having multiple implementations of TCP/IP. Do you kind of see Bitcoin as one of those base layer protocols that other things are going to be built off of, like TCP/IP?
I really do. I think that Bitcoin is going to be a payment method of the future, and therefore we need to bring it to the people. Bitcoin is extremely complicated. It has been boiled down quite a bit, and there's a lot of folks that really truly understand it. However, once you get into the actual nuts and bolts of it, it requires a very significant amount of man hours and resources to actually deal with the little bits and pieces. So having more expertise than just one group of developers, having multiple groups of developers that do this, that's healthy for the entire community. So I would welcome another 20 implementations. It's just good for us, for all of us.
Yeah. So just to clarify, this works with Bitcoin. Is that right? This is not any type of altcoin or anything like that, right?
This is purely Bitcoin right now. The code is modular enough that adding actually something like Litecoin would not be that complicated. But currently it only does Bitcoin.
Okay. And I mean, so what have you used it for so far? I know this is kind of new, just finishing it, but what have the implementations been like so far?
Well, we obviously built our entire Coinvoice project on top of it. So Coinvoice, for the folks who don't know, is an invoicing service, or we are a payment processor, so we can take either payments in BTC and then disburse in USD, or the other way around. We can accept payments in USD and disburse in BTC. The entire backend is running on BTCD and the other wallet implementations that we made. So when you actually make a payment on our website, what happens is that it flows through the code that we have written, and it gets put out immediately in the mempool. So you get instant gratification that the payment actually has hit the network, and then you just sit there and wait for your confirmations to show up. So the code is in production today, and we use it. It's great.
Wow. Okay. So a little more about Coinvoice. This is something where you can invoice somebody in dollars and get paid in Bitcoin, or vice versa. Is that right?
That is exactly correct. So let me use my favorite example. One of our first customers was a German journalist, and he writes publications for a U.S. company. So once a month, he basically writes up an invoice on our website, and he invoices the publication company in U.S. dollars, and we pay him then in Bitcoin.
That's cool. That's very useful. And so is there like a fee for that service, or are you processing the payment? How does that work?
Yes, there is a fee involved, and there's a fee. There's actually two fees. There's a fee for going from USD to BTC, and there's a different fee going from BTC to USD. The reason for that is that obviously when we disburse BTC, we assume a risk because if there's something wrong with a transaction or whatever you want to call it, so we have a higher risk. Currently, the number for that is 4%. The other way around is the standard market fee of 1%.
Okay, gotcha. So 4%, that's almost like a credit card fee, right? That's kind of similar to that. And that would be if you're going from
USD to BTC.
US dollars to Bitcoins. Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm thinking about it now, and that's cheaper than buying Bitcoins on an exchange, typically.
That's the idea. And not only that, is it's also instant, effectively, right? So when we can disburse the Bitcoins very, very quickly, there's no wiring fee involved with that particular transaction. So there's a few benefits that exist there. So one of the things that I actually would like to mention on this is that normal businesses, they accept credit cards, and there is a markup on the credit card that the consumer just simply doesn't see. So I hear the criticism, right? Oh, but it's so expensive. Well, it's the cost of doing business, right? Moving money is just simply not free.
You're just making that process transparent instead of building it into the price where people can't see it, right?
That's right. And but if you build a business, you should obviously build in your processing costs into the price of your business. And that's what the guy who sells widgets in a store has done that, because they know that you're going to show up with a credit card. I hate to say this, but there's not a lot of people doing cash transactions anymore.
Right.
So there is a cost of moving money around the world, and we make it easy, secure, and actually relatively cheap once you actually measure it up against banks and some other institutions.
Yeah. What about the cost of building this Bitcoin D implementation in Go?
Well, we have a handful of developers that basically work on this full time. At this point, we're down to about 2 guys who are working on it full time because it's just wrapping up things, and adding more people at this point would just not help, would not make it go any faster. I'm sure I should say this, but the way we call it is 1 woman, 9 months, right? Not 9 women, 1 month to produce a baby. So we're basically now finishing up, and so there's no longer the amount of people on it. So let me just say a couple of nice things about BTCD, which are really cool. And one of the things that we did from the beginning is that everything has to be tested automatically. So you can literally, when you download the code, run the tests, and virtually every line of code in the code base is tested and validated. So we can pretty quickly move or detect if we made a mistake when we actually put out a new version. So, in fact, actually deploying a new version usually is a couple of hours worth of time.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good. What are some of the other differences between the, I don't know what to call it, the conventional Bitcoin client and the one that you built?
Well, so the big one, but actually Bitcoin D is actually starting to do the same thing, so I'll take that as a compliment that they liked what we did, is we actually made some separation between the different parts within the code. So what we did is we split up the chain from the wallet, and in fact we also split the whole wallet portion from the GUI, the one that actually shows you how much or how many Bitcoins you have sitting on your computer. So we made that in through distinct layers that can do different things based on what you need. So if you need to write an application that only requires chain questions, now you can only basically run one portion of the code that handles all the chain-related portions. So that gives people who want to write code quite a bit of flexibility to pick and choose the building blocks they need to implement whatever it is that they want to do with it.
And is there ever a chance that this could become the reference client, like if enough people start running it and miners start using it and so forth?
Well, that's a tough question. So again, I don't want to be the only guy out there. I really don't. I mean that. But well, you know what? I hope that. So let me say something else nice about our code, because I'm pretty proud of it. The BTCD code is very cleanly written. In brand new people that show up, and some folks have shown up, and they basically say, "Oh, I can completely read this," a couple of hours in. The Bitcoin D code is a little bit more, it's just evolved over time, and therefore it's large and not always clear what the intent is. I'm not trying to say anything ugly. It's well-written code. It's just complex, very, very, very complex code. And since we got to do a from-scratch implementation, we were able to take some of the complexity out and just simply remove it from the code base. So I'm not trying to say anything ugly. It's just our code is slightly more readable because it wasn't evolved. It was basically a clean room implementation.
Right. So I'm picturing like there's a couple different ways you could build a 3-bedroom house, right? You could take a 1-bedroom house and put an addition on it and then put another addition on it. Or you could build it all at once, a 3-bedroom house. And they both accomplish the same purpose, but they're just constructed a little bit differently. So I see kind of a comparison there, right?
I think that's a fair comparison. I really do. The thing is that the additional thing to add there is that the 3-bedroom house that was built in one go was also not really designed at that time, right? So it was a bit more ad hoc. So again, to say something nice about the Bitcoin D client, it's an impressive amount of code. It's very complex. It does what it does very well. But let's have more of them, right? Let's have more diversity so that the network itself becomes more resilient.
Do you know of any other projects ongoing where people are trying to build more of them?
Well, there's been a couple of failed attempts. There was actually one from a German fellow. Actually, he had a company based that was called Bits of Proof, and he had done a full client implementation. Although I think that they have actually at this point dropped off of out of the community, which is unfortunate. I really was hoping that they would stick around as well. But the thing is, if you start playing in Bitcoin, the reference client seems deceptively easy until you actually get to the details. And like I said before, it's an extremely complex piece of software. And a lot of people underestimate the amount of time involved in getting that off the ground. But we have a professional development team. Most of us are crypto geeks, so we basically were able to get into it, and we have different people working on different areas of that code base.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a really cool feat. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about for this interview? I mean, we touched on Coinvoice, and we touched on, obviously, the client, but what other projects are you working on? Well,
we are obviously now starting to... we are at this point ready to put Coinvoice out there to the larger community. So we are not VC backed, so we don't have the crazy schedule that you got to deliver, the next $100 million project every other day.
Yes.
So, and that basically gives us the time to spend a little bit more time and do things right. We really care about quality quite a bit. So when we just started, it wasn't as polished, and it's getting more and more polished over time. And I think at this point we are actually ready to start on large volumes of customers. And we have all kinds of plans in the future for it. One of the important ones is we are going to start localizing, because obviously, folks in Southern America want to be able to, just handle the website in Spanish, and so we're working on that. So we have a couple of translations. So those are going to come up pretty quickly. We started doing e-commerce type deals. So we have now 2 reference API implementations. So where you can basically directly integrate within a cart and then charge Bitcoin and then being paid in US dollars.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Right. So you can literally just add it to your... right now we have 2 implementations, one for WooCommerce on WordPress.
Hey, I used that.
All right. Cool. And the other one is Drupal and UberCart. So we have written 2 references for that. So actually there's an underlying library, and they both use that same library. And then the actual plugins basically literally translate between Coinvoice and whatever line items the invoice consists of. Mm-hmm. So, and we're going to add a couple more. So we're thinking about OS Commerce. We're thinking about Magento. So there's a couple of other really large cards out there that we are going to integrate with and basically make available to the general public in the next couple of weeks.
Wow! So making it easier for people to facilitate Bitcoin payments or fiat payments all around the world.
Right. Well, the idea is that not everybody can and is capable of running a wallet, right? It's a complex piece of technology. So what we're trying to do is make it easier for people to use Bitcoin. And we get something for free is we get liquidity in and out of the Bitcoin network. Because people just simply don't have to go to an exchange to do their transactions, right? So they can get paid in Bitcoin and then use the Bitcoin to pay for different services and vice versa. So we are hoping that more people can adopt Bitcoin using our service. And again, that will just pump some liquidity, badly needed liquidity, into the Bitcoin network, so that when something bad happens, that the price swings aren't as dramatic.
Right. Okay, cool. Anything else you want to add?
No, thank you so much for interviewing me.
Thank you. And where can people find you online?
Just Coinvoice.com.
Just Coinvoice.com.
Right.
And then for Conformal, do you have a different website, or is it at Coinvoice?
No, actually, that's Conformal.com as well. And then all our code, all reference code is out there, and it can be found on GitHub under the Conformal site.
Well, excellent, Marco. Thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
The Big Give Foundation is a nonprofit charitable giving organization leveraging the power of the Bitcoin community to improve public health and the environment worldwide. Help us demonstrate the significant impact of Bitcoin in addressing these critical issues on a global scale. Support international giving in Bitcoin. Please visit our website at www.bitgivefoundation.org. That's www.bitgivefoundation.org.